People always wonder if things happen for a reason. Now, this is found a lot in spirituality and religion in general, and as I've said before, I'm not really religious nor spiritual anymore. I consider myself to be non religious and non spiritual, but mystical. In other words, I really pretty much have like a completely secular view of the world. I mean, something that SD enthusiasts would call just pure stage orange. Like, living inside a universe that's just mostly filled of hydrogen, helium, dark matter, dark energy, so on and so forth. But, since a lot of my topics are so, as I call them, ontologically independent, they can still be present even if we're living in such a universe. So, like, it doesn't really matter if it's purely secular or empirical, this stuff can survive. So, I mean, for that reason, I don't really delve into metaphysics or spirituality as much as I used to. Now, yeah, I do still tell stories of all the paranormal and metaphysical experiences I've had in this life as Ethan and so on and so forth. But I don't take them to be as central as I used to. And one of the things that I have thrown out as that change has occurred throughout my life is what's known as teleology. This is the idea that everything that happens serves some purpose, or it happens for some reason. And, all of us deep down would like to feel this way, that everything that happens to us happens for some reason or some greater purpose, because it makes it feel like things don't just happen in vain. But let's be honest, if we really analyzed what it would mean for the universe to be teleological, we would actually consider that to be worse. On first impression, it seems like it would be a better option. Like, yeah, okay, like all the hardship and struggle we go through, it's not for nothing. Obviously, that sounds better. But again, it only sounds better upon first impression, because if you really think about it, if all of that is happening for a reason, then what else could you be thrown into, right? Like, what other struggles or suffering and so on and so forth could you be like intentionally thrown into by the universe if the universe is doing it all for some reason? So no, like that would actually be a worse outcome if things did happen for a reason. But there is an insight. I don't even know if I should call it an insight, honestly, because it's really simplistic. Like, it can have a profound effect on your mindset. Like personally here in this Ethan life, I would say it's had a profound effect on my mindset, as I've come to this conclusion recently. But for lack of better terms, like a quote unquote insight that I've quote unquote dialed into. And that is, it's not that things happen for a reason, but they do happen within reason. Now, again, on the face of it, it's like, well, that's obvious, isn't it? Right? Like, I mean, we don't see anything happen that like defies logic. None of us place two objects next to two others on a table and see five there. So obviously, everything happens within logic and therefore happens within reason. So that's what I mean when I say I don't even know if I should really call this an insight, because it really is like too obvious to be deep enough to call it an insight. But at the same time, as obvious as it is, there is something to unpack from this conclusion, which can, again, have a much deeper effect on your mindset and your way of approaching life than something more teleological would. Because, again, the teleology, if you really think about it, it actually turns out to be a more troublesome and more concerning view of the universe, that the universe is doing all this stuff to you for a reason. Okay, then what else could it throw your way? Like, that starts to become concerning. But also, again, like, there's another facet to it, which is just that, nothing that happens in life is ideal. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. A lot of things that happen to us in life, they're a mixed bag. Yes, there's some circumstances that are ideal, but there's other circumstances where, we kind of think to ourselves, things would have gone smoother if this alternative event had happened, so on and so forth. So, see, the idea behind something more teleological, or that things happen for a reason, is that things always happen for some sort of greater good. But if that were the case, if there was really some plan behind everything, then why is that plan not making everything happen to an idealistic extent? Now, even if you want to say, well, that's not a good enough argument, maybe like everything is still happening for some greater plan, but like that greater plan just isn't ideal, or like maybe we don't understand it. Okay, here's an example to throw that part under the bus. Think about this. Let's say you have two quantum physicists. Okay, both of them have the same level of understanding with regards to quantum physics. Like both of them have the same depth of knowledge and expertise and intelligence with regards to quantum physics. Okay, so right now, as we're analyzing them, we could say they're equally intelligent. But now let's say I tell you that one of those quantum physicists has figured out how to communicate all of quantum physics and all of quantum mechanics to a chimpanzee using nothing more than the grunts and screams of a chimpanzee. Like they can literally communicate like a chimpanzee to such a degree that they can get a chimpanzee to understand quantum mechanics. That is a really tremendous, impressive feat, is it not? Okay, now who would you say is more intelligent? The quantum physicist who has, again, the same level of understanding and intelligence with regards to quantum physics, but would you say he's more intelligent? Or would you say the other one who's figured out how to communicate all of his knowledge to a chimpanzee to where the chimpanzee can understand it? All else being equal, obviously, is the second person. Why? Because they not only have the same level of intelligence on the subject matter, but their intelligence then goes further and includes this capacity to communicate that level of intelligence and knowledge to something else, more impressively, something which doesn't even have the same level of development that a human brain has. Right? It's far more impressive. That shows that there's more intelligence there. Okay, so you can argue with me all you want and say, well, Ethan, maybe there is some greater teleological plan to the universe and we just don't understand it. Maybe it doesn't feel ideal to us, but that's because we just don't understand it. Okay, remember the quantum physicist and the chimpanzee. What type of teleological plan would be more intelligent? Would it be a plan where the universe is unfolding via that plan and it's happening and it's happening and it's happening and you can't even understand what's going on? Or would it be a plan that not only unfolds all the events happening in the cosmos, but is then able to go the extra mile of unfolding the events in a way that communicates what's going on to you, where you're not left in the dark and you're not lost? Obviously, the second one, by definition, is more intelligent. Like, this is not even debatable. By definition, it's more intelligent because it's accomplishing all the things that the other plan is accomplishing, but then it's going further and accomplishing more than it as well. Now, you may say, okay, Ethan, maybe it doesn't matter that the other plan is more intelligent. Maybe we're not supposed to have a fully intelligent design or plan to the universe, because if we knew everything that was going on, we wouldn't be capable of growth. Okay, you should know by now that given that I talk about triviality and ad hoc and all sorts of other ontologically independent topics on this channel, which go ever further, you should know that I'll always be able to pull out an even better model. Where, okay, what if, first off, there's a whole debate to be had over whether growth is even necessary. Like, is it really better to go through an ascension or a growth than to just already be fully developed and being perfectly happy, enjoying life? That's a whole other topic. For which there is a debate about that. So don't take growth to just be central as an assumption. Don't assume that. Everybody assumes that. I guarantee, most people watching this assume that. So don't assume that. That's its own separate discussion. But I'm just going to leave that out of this video. I'm not even going to dig into that one. That's a whole video in its own right. But let's just go with that assumption. Let's just give it the benefit of the doubt and assume that, yeah, growth and ascension is some sort of ultimate good. Therefore, the universe should be allowing you a chance to grow. Okay, even if growth is an ultimate good that the universe should abide by, there's still other models by which you could grow just as well, if not better, with a universal plan that communicates itself to you, like the quantum physicist or the chimpanzee. So even if we take growth to be central, which again is leaping over an entire discussion of its own, but even if we give that the benefit of the doubt and say growth is an absolute good, it is absolutely central to the universe, even if we were to say that, there's still no reason to not have the more intelligent plan, which is capable of being communicated to you and understood by you as it is unfolding and as it is happening. Absolutely no reason. Triviality does not stop. Things can go ever further. You can always pull out better models. So my point here is that we need to just be honest with ourselves that life is not about being ideal. That's not what's going on here. It's not about things being ideal. Now, at first, this kind of hits you in the chest, like, oh, that kind of sucks. But again, we have to be honest with ourselves. Now, yes, ideal situations do happen sometimes in our lives, but other times things don't go as smoothly as they could have, and that's fine. It's just life is that way. It's mixed. Life is very symmetrical. It's not about being ideal, it's about being symmetrical. Really, if you want to find something simplistic to frame it with, look to symmetry over idealness. That would be better. But okay, like if we're really honest with ourselves, we can see that, yeah, obviously we don't understand everything that's going on in our lives. So we're not living in some sort of plan that's being communicated to us like the chimpanzee. So even if there is a plan by which the universe is unfolding, it's not an ideal one. And again, that's even if there is some plan by which the universe is unfolding. I don't even really think that's the case anymore. And I think that there isn't some plan or some reason or purpose for why everything happens. I don't think that teleology is real anymore, precisely because even if it is, it's negligible. The fact that even if there is such a plan, that plan is unideal, okay, like it's like even if there is a plan, the universe looks identical to a universe under which there is no plan. This is something that Neil deGrasse Tyson has kind of said in some way before, which I agree with, that if the universe looks the same with a plan as it does without a plan, then what's the point in even saying there's a plan? Like it's negligible, right? What's the point in saying there's a plan if that plan doesn't make it look any different than there not being a plan? That's essentially it. It's negligible. You know, like if like drinking water, why is it true to say that drinking water will hydrate you? Because if you drink water, you will experience hydration. Even if you want to say we're living in a simulation or like, you know, reality is an illusion, like even if you want to talk about metaphysics, it doesn't matter. The metaphysics makes no difference to what you experience. You're still going to experience hydration even if the water is an illusion, even if it's not real, so on and so forth. Whatever the metaphysical status of the water is, it's still simply true that you're going to experience hydration with the water, and that if you don't drink water, you're going to experience dehydration and potentially death. So whatever the metaphysical truth of the universe is, it does not make any difference to the water because the metaphysics is negligible. So yeah, there's infinitely many options. You know, the water could be an illusion, it could be real, it could be concrete, it could be abstract. There's infinitely many metaphysical options over what the nature of the universe could be. Same thing with teleology. Okay, yeah, maybe the metaphysical nature of the universe is teleological in some way, but even if it is, look around you. The universe still is a very mixed bag. It looks identical to what we would see even if we lived in a universe where there was no plan. So whether there is a plan, whether there isn't a plan, just let that duality collapse. It's negligible. It doesn't really make a difference. You drinking the water, that does make a difference to your experience, right? You need it to feel hydrated. So that is not as ambiguous. That is definitely something which makes its presence known. But that's my point, is even if we live in a universe where there is a plan, that plan is not prominent. It doesn't have a presence. It's negligible. So that's one reason why I don't really buy into teleology anymore. The other reasons, that's a whole video I could make in my own right. So honestly, I would rather, if anybody would want to have a conversation about that with me, they can, but like, I would actually prefer that you would hear all of my reasons first before you start trying to have a conversation and like convince me that teleology is actually true. You know, like I've come to this conclusion after years and years and years of my own work and my own dialing in, so I would rather you hear out everything that I put behind it before you just say, yeah, okay, Ethan, maybe I want to argue with you that we are living in a teleological universe. Okay, so yeah, there's two reasons there. One, if the universe is teleological, you would think that would make us feel better, but it actually doesn't. That would actually be worse, because now what else could the universe throw your way intentionally? And second of all, it's negligible, and truth really is about like what makes its presence known. It's not about negligibility. It's about unambiguousness over ambiguity. So for those couple reasons, I don't really think that teleology is the case. I don't think that things happen for a reason. But again, I do think that they happen within reason. So now let's dig into this. Again, it seems obvious at first. Well, it is obvious at first. Obviously, we don't see all sorts of contradictory things happening in this universe. So obviously things happen within logic. Obviously things happen within reason. Nothing unreasonable happens here. So that sounds obvious at first, but this actually can give you a much deeper and more mature outlook on life than a teleological viewpoint can or would. Because if everything happens within reason, then that means that everything that happens to you or anybody happens within a sort of range. Again, a sort of mixed bag, a sort of symmetry or non-dualism. Things can go this way and be bad. Things can go that way and be good. Things can go down the middle and just kind of be okay or so-so. But you can sort of drive this range more or less. You know, even your ability to drive the range obviously is you're capable of that to a degree that's within reason. You know, we're not fully capable of dictating everything about our lives. You know, we don't live in some sort of libertarian universe where we can just decide to do whatever we want. We can't just be capable of whatever we want to be capable of. No, there's things that we're just not capable of sometimes, and that's okay. We experience limitations. So we can't have a sort of unlimited capacity to just drive this range any which way we want, but we have a range of a capacity to drive the range any which way we want. So even that happens within reason. But what does that mean? Like, what does it mean that we can sort of drive this range? Well, let's use a very simple example. Let's say you want to study math. Okay, or better yet, let's not even say you want to study math. Let's say you start off just wanting to learn math. You want to be good at math. Okay, obviously you're more likely to be good at math if you study a lot of math and get into a lot of math. So that's going to drive the range this way. It doesn't guarantee that you'll be good at math because you still have this range there. You know, up here at this upper extreme of the range is you being really good at math. Maybe that happens, but it's also unfortunately possible that maybe the lower extreme of the range happens. Maybe you put in years and years of study trying to get good at math and you still end up sucking at math. Again, we have to be honest with ourselves. That is unfortunately a possibility. We're trying to have as mature of an outlook on life as possible. We have to admit to ourselves that we do see these things happen all the time. Sometimes you put in a lot of work and unfortunately things just don't pan out. Sometimes you put in very little work and things really pan out way above expected. So again, it goes both ways. You can have the upper extreme of the range happen. You can have the lower extreme range of the range happen. But if you at least drive the range this way, you give yourself a better chance at being good at math because even this lower extreme of the range is ultimately going to be higher on average. Where if you just don't study math, or worse yet, you start studying a lot of misinformed sources on math, you're going to drive the range this way. Now, even if you get a really awesome possibility that ends up happening, you're still not going to, on average, be as good at math as if you were to drive it this way. So your decisions do drive the range of possibilities that can realistically happen in your life. And now again, this all sounds very cliche. This is all still very obvious. But if you really internalize this, there is something here which can really give you a sense of comfort in your life. Because think about it, we're always concerned with, okay, you know, what if something extremely bad happens to me tomorrow? What if I get sick? What if I get in an accident? You know, what if I get caught doing something that I didn't want to get caught doing, so on and so forth, right? This bothers us all the time. Now, what's better? Would it really be better to sit down and think, okay, well, whatever happens, even if something extremely bad does happen to me tomorrow, at least it's happening for a reason? No, I mean, at first that would probably make you feel better, right? Like, again, on the face of it, that sounds like it would be comforting. Like, okay, well, whatever happens, at least it happens for a reason. But if you actually think very deeply about it, that would be even more discomforting, because if an extremely bad accident, for example, can happen to you for a reason, then what else could the universe do to you to damage you and tear you up? It, like, again, the fact that there's now like a universal cosmic plan behind it, like driving you into an accident, that's potentially even scarier for a lot of people. So I don't think that that necessarily is going to ease your mindset. Now, yeah, again, for some people it can, but if they really thought about it, I think most people on average would get even more unsettled if the universe were teleological in nature. So there's that option, or there's this other option where, again, things don't happen for a reason, but they do happen within reason. This at first sounds like a more boring, bland, kind of bleh option. It doesn't sound as exciting. It doesn't sound as cosmic as the teleological option. But if you really think deeply about it, it is actually not only much more mature, but much more comforting amidst all the good and bad that you can experience in life. Because let's go back to that question. What if something extremely bad happens to me tomorrow? It sounds frightening at first, but again, you do have some ability to drive the range. If you're worried about, are you going to get sick tomorrow? Are you going to get in an accident tomorrow? At least you can sit there and realize, okay, I can eat healthy, I can work out, I can take care of my health. Eyesight, I can really make sure I'm paying attention while I'm driving. I can get my eyes checked. Like, there's small things you can do that at least can safeguard something extremely bad from happening, or at least lower the likelihood of it. Now, again, that doesn't completely stamp out the possibility. Extremely bad things can happen to people who put in a lot of work and take care of their health and their eyesight all the time. They can still get in accidents, but the very fact that you can, again, at least drive the range by doing those things, that should give you some comfort in the fact that you're not as likely to have something extremely bad happen to you tomorrow. You are sort of, have you heard of the Doppler effect? I hope you have, because I'm pretty sure it's a middle school topic. But to use an analogy real quick here, it's kind of like the Doppler effect, like when a car or some vehicle is driving away from you, as the source of the sound gets further away, the sound waves get stretched out, so it gets quieter, right? It gets more distant, it becomes less disruptive. It's kind of like that. Your ability to drive the range of what happens in your life, even if it doesn't completely get rid of the disruptive sound, it at least drives it further away where it becomes less and less and less of a likelihood. And that should at least give you some comfort. It should at least give some comfort to your ears, not being as disrupted by this disruptive sound. Right? You're putting a lot of distance between you and the accident. So again, there's still this very realistic possibility of, yeah, of course, we can experience all sorts of unfortunate circumstances, but at least if we take care of what we pay attention to and what we try to learn and what we try to digest and what we try to maintain in our diet, not just food-wise, but information-wise, like at least if we really just slow down and pay attention to these things, that extremely bad thing that may or may not happen to you tomorrow, it at least is driven further away. You are more likely to wake up tomorrow and have a good day if you just slow down and pay attention. Just pay attention to what you do. Pay attention to how you take care of yourself and treat others and interact with others. And the possibility of something negative happening is at least flattened. Things happen within reason, Because again, you drive this range, there's a range of realistic possibilities. Yes, the lower extreme may happen, but at least if you try to drive it as far up as you can, even if you do get the lower extreme, it's not as likely to be as bad. It could still be bad, but again, the likelihood just goes way, way down. So think of it that way. I think, again, the fact that this is really an obvious insight, like too obvious to even call it an insight, that in of itself is arguably a strength of it. Like, again, there's nothing woo-woo here. When you're talking about, maybe there's some higher plan, maybe there's some teleological frame at work with regards to the universe, that's more spiritual. It's more woo-woo. Like there's no evidence that things happen for a reason. Because even if they do, again, it's negligible. That's the reason why there's no evidence that things happen for a reason. Because even if they do, it's negligible, it's not ideal, so on and so forth. Proof would be like it makes its presence known. Like the fact that when you drink water, hydration makes its presence known. That's what proof looks like. That's what truth looks like. Maybe you don't want to tie truth to proof. That's fine. But just, again, looking at a very simple example, I mean, truth makes its presence known. You could also say the same thing of proof, even if the two aren't always correlated with each other. Sometimes things are true and we don't have proof for them yet. That's fine. But in some fashion or another, they make their presence known. We don't see any plan that has some sort of non-negligible presence. So, okay, that's why teleology is more quote-unquote woo-woo. But with this idea that things happen within reason rather than for a reason, there's nothing woo-woo about that. The fact that it's so obvious and so just duh, like, yeah, obviously things happen within reason. Obviously nothing illogical or unreasonable happens to us. You know, we don't get struck by 2 meteors next to 2 other meteors where there's 5 meteors, or like 2 + 2 = 5. Like nothing like that happens to us here. Even very bad things still happen within reason. So yeah, it is very obvious, but the fact that it's obvious, again, is a strength of it, that it is something you can count on. It is so obvious. It is so grounded. The fact that it is that obvious means it has, again, a strong presence. Truth is about presence. This fact that things happen within reason, it has a strong presence in our lives. So you can count on it. You can lean on it. It's a stronger rock to build on than something more teleological, which is unproven and negligible, right? But not only that, it also gives you more comfort than something teleological can, because the teleological question leads to, oh no, what if then the universe just intentionally pushes me into a bad accident for some teleological purpose? Well, no, you don't have to worry about that now because things happen within reason. It's not that there's something out there trying to drive you this way or that way. No, like you yourself, within reason, can drive the range that happens within reason. And so that should lend you some sense of comfort over your ability to at least ease the probability of something disruptive happening. Again, the disruptive sound, it's at least getting further away. It's not just that in this case the car is driving further away from you, it's that you're driving yourself further away from that car. So you're actually able to play some role in putting some distance between you and the disruption and easing the probability of anything disruptive happening overall. So it's a more realistic outlook on life, it's a more proven outlook on life, it's a more grounded outlook on life, and it's just overall a more comforting outlook on life. Now, is it ideal? No. But again, life is not about things being ideal. You will experience some good things, some bad things. I know that's cliche, but I feel I need to say it. So no, life is not about things being ideal. So the fact that things happen within reason, yeah, that's not ideal. Of course, if you were to ask me, Ethan, what's the ideal? It would be, you'd be capable of all sorts of illogical and unreasonable stuff. You'd be capable of performing contradictory illogical feats. So, okay, like that's not happening to us. If we're saying that's the ideal, okay, we're not living some ideal superpowered life. But the fact that things at least happen within reason gives you some ability to drive and dictate what happens, even if not full ability, again, at least some ability to ease what happens and to take care of yourself and others as best as you can. So hopefully that came across clear enough. I don't know if that sounded too rambly, but I just wanted to give, again, that very obvious, too obvious to be an insight, and hope that it gives you some comfort. Even if it kind of rips out the whole teleology topic, hopefully this new framing at least gives you something to really bite into and work with and drive with. But anyways, let me know if you have any questions on this topic or any others. And on the note of driving the range, use that to create a nice day. And I'll see you all next time.